Okay, it's time for Kendo Rant. Let's get straight into the questions. First one, I've been doing Kendo for 4 years, but I stopped a year ago due to personal problems. Since the last time I practiced, my physical abilities aren't the same as last time. I'm trying to get back into Kendo with a fresh start, but I'm afraid that I'd slow others down. What should I do? Best thing to do is go to your Kendo club, wherever it was that you used to go to, or wherever you're planning to now, and talk to the people there, especially the instructor or the teacher. Tell them your situation. You don't have to go into details about the personal problems why you stopped. I don't mean that. I mean about how you're worried about your physical abilities not being able to keep up with everybody. I'm sure it's not going to be a problem, all right? I'm sure it's absolutely not going to be a problem. You might have to just go back and start pretty much at the beginning, or take a few steps back from where you were in the place before. You know, maybe if you were wearing armor before, maybe you could kind of do a few sessions or even a couple of months without wearing the armor until you sort of build yourself back up ready to jump in with everybody else. That's what I do. But yeah, like I say, talk to the people there and they'll advise you of the best thing to do. Next one. Okay, this is 4 questions in a single comment, so let's run through them. Number 1, what's the difference between Hanshi, Kyoshi, and Nenshi? Okay, so they are called the shogo. They're the titles that exist in Japanese Budo, in some Japanese Budo. And in Kendo, we use those 3. Denshi is you're able to get it after having 6th dan for 1 year. Is generally the prerequisite for Denshi. There's a kind of test, or you have to usually do something for it. So either have like submit an essay or something like that, or you might have to go to an actual exam. Depends on where in the world you do it. Kyoshi is very similar, except it's after you've taken 7th dan. After you've achieved 7th dan, I think you've got to have 7th dan for a certain amount of time. I'm not totally sure on how much time. It might be a year, it might be longer. Again, that's something else actually differs from Federation as well, but still, and usually there's something you have to do for it. So like, again, either an exam or a written thesis or an essay or something like that. And generally for both of these, both Kyoshi and Denshi, you also have expected to have contributed to Kendo as a whole as well, at least the Kendo community in some way. So you have to have some sort of evidence of that, whether it's acting as a referee or as a coach or a lead in a Kendo club or whatever. There's loads of different things you could have done in order to receive that title. And the last one, Hanshi, that's the highest one. Okay, so Hanshi is usually awarded to people who've got Hachidan. It doesn't necessarily have to be, though. There are a few cases of people who are not 8th dan, but have received the Hanshi designation. And what that is, that's a little bit different in that I believe it can only be issued by the All Japan Kendo Federation for a start. I might be wrong, though. I might be wrong, actually, thinking about it in my head. Maybe there's some other situations where it's been given by other federations, but I don't know. I don't know exactly about it. It's usually given by the All Japan Kendo Federation anyway. Obviously, this is like way above my pay grade stuff, so the way it works, though, is you're kind of nominated for it. It's not something that you have to test for. Instead, it's something that you're not elected to, but you're kind of selected for as somebody that's had a very, very long standing contribution to kind of Kendo as a whole. Okay, and that's obviously the highest you can be. They roughly translate to Denshi, roughly translates to instructor, Kyoshi as a teacher, and Hanshi as a master. Okay, so the second one says, how do you shape your men boga and how do you leave it to dry? Okay. Oof. Okay, so here's my Vanguard Praetor men. Love this men, it's well good. Okay, so how I would shape it is it doesn't need an awful lot of shaping, actually, because if you tie it properly and you wear it properly, it will automatically, not so much automatically, but it'll kind of naturally fall into the right shape if you wear it properly. So what you have to do is when you put the men on, you tie it up properly, make sure that the knot is tied level with your eyes and not too low. And that when you've got it on your head, you take the mend at it and you pull them forward this way, just like that, okay? So if I had it tied up Yeah, had it tied up. I'm not going to tie it, it's take ages, but I would pull it like that and then shape these to be like that, and they'll sit like that. Okay, because KendoStar Borg is stitched in such a way that it shapes really nicely like that. So that's how I would shape the men. I don't do anything like tie it up when I'm not using it or anything like that. I tend to find that leaves it with an unusual shape. I've seen people that kind of wrap the himo around it and stuff, tie it all like this, and they end up with like mendari that are sticking up in all sorts of weird directions. So I don't want you to do that. Leaving it to dry, all right? The best thing you can do is take it by the himo like this, leave the himo in this kind of position, but then take it like this and then hang it up somewhere, right? Hang it up somewhere by these himo like that. That's the best way to do it, all right? You can tie that in a knot and put it on a hanger somewhere. You could thread. What I like to do is I actually get each kode and I thread the himo through each kode. So I leave the kode on there as well. If you have to leave it down somewhere, that's the very best way to do it, to be honest. And if you can do it outside in the shade, I'd definitely do that. Definitely do that. Obviously not when it's raining. Try not to leave it face down like this. Lots of people leave it face down because they want to get air to this part. But the problem is all the sweat and moisture is going to fall down into this menbuchi, which you don't want to get wet. If you get this wet, it could warp, it could soften, and it can even tear. So that's not the way you want to leave it. You want to kind of always keep the mengane facing upwards if you can. All right, so that's how I would leave it to dry it out. Okay. What speed should Kirikaeshi be done during an exam? It should be done at, it doesn't have to be done quickly, but it does have to be done consecutively, and it has to be done correctly, all right? So I wouldn't even say as fast as you can whilst doing it correctly, which was the answer I was tempted to give. I would say speed is less important than doing it correctly, but part of doing Kirikaeshi correctly is doing the sayu men, the left and right men, as renzoku waza, all right? So that means not mem, mem. It depends on the level of grading, but if it's like second dan, third dan, I'd be looking for renzoku men. So it'd be men, mem, 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 mem. Yeah, not mem, 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 or what sometimes you see is mem, 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 like this. Yeah, not like that. Mem, 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 mem. Yeah, that isn't the speed I'm telling you to do it. I'm saying that the rhythm should be consecutive men strikes. What Kendo books do I recommend? Oof, back again. This one. And all the books on KendoStar. They're not books that we've written at KendoStar. They're all actually published by the All Japan Kendo Federation. So they're all like the proper official stuff. But this is the best one. This is one of my favourite books. The official guide for Kendo instruction. Because it's like, it's there in black and white what the Zenken then want you to do when it comes to Kendo. Okay, next one. What is the best way, in your opinion, to perfect my kiai, or how to make it louder and stronger? I get this question quite often. I think lots of people focus on this a little bit too much. I would focus more on making correct strikes with Kentai no Ichi, with the stamping at the same time as you're hitting. And in the meantime, shouting men as loud as you possibly can. If it's as loud as you possibly can, that's totally fine. Don't worry about, for now, making your kiai this sort of super strong, powerful force that's going to offset your opponent. If you can't attack with like stamping and hitting at the same time, then it doesn't really matter if your kiai is super powerful or not. Just shout as loud as you can, right? Don't worry about the point isn't even that it has to be loud, especially for the striking voice. It just has to be an outward expression. Obviously, it manifests itself in as loud if you've got a big spirit, but you just have to focus on shouting as loud as you can. That's all I'd say, and the rest will come with practice. Right, this is a great one. I really wanted to talk about this. This one came to me like by private message on Facebook. And it's something I get asked quite a lot. Now, I'm going to apologise up front for all of our viewers in like outside of the European Union, because this relates specifically to the EU-Japan Free Trade Agreement. So in February, the EU and Japan signed an agreement that was like basically for free trade. I haven't read the 500-page document, but the question says, do you know how the EU-Japan Free Trade Agreement treats Kendo equipment? So I haven't read the massive document that details every single aspect. Everything I can find about it suggests that the main point behind it was so that they could export cheese and wine to Japan cheaper, and they could import cars to the EU cheaper. But it does kind of also insinuate that generally import duties would be reduced to zero on most things or all things coming into the EU from Japan. Now, as somebody that as part of KendoStar imports on a weekly basis into the EU from Japan, I can tell you right now that as it currently stands, we still get charged import duty, okay? However, the import duty on Kendo equipment is actually reasonably low. It's like 2 or 3%. But what everyone misses, and this is the thing that I'd really want you to kind of think about, because I've been asked this a few times now from people all around Europe, because I think they're thinking, well, if we import direct from Japan, we won't have to pay anything when we import it. That isn't how it's going to work, right? That isn't what this means. It just means that the import duty would be reduced to zero. Now, currently it's not reduced to zero, but let's even imagine that they reduce Kendo equipment to zero import duty. When you get a bill when you buy something from Japan and you get a bill asking you to pay the import costs or whatever, however they phrase it, like 2% of what they're asking, well, 2% of the invoice value or 3% or whatever it is that they decide to set as the custom charge is applied. But the majority of what you're paying is VAT, it's sales tax in your country. Now, there's no way getting out of that, all right? Now, if two countries in the EU, like the UK and let's say France, if I sell something from KendoStar to a customer in France, included in that price is VAT, all right? That's money that we collect on behalf of the customer, and then we pass that on to the government, all right? That's how it works. Now, that doesn't happen with the EU-Japan trade agreement. Instead, they treat VAT exactly the same as they do from other imports, all right? So what happens is you still have to pay the country's VAT, which could be up to 25%, depending on what country you're living in, all right? Now, that means that when we import from Japan, like I say, we do this weekly, it's broken down, all right? There's a service charge from the courier. It's about 11 GBP, pounds, that is. Then there's the import duty, which again is about 2% of the item's value. And then there's a VAT bill, which is 20% in the UK of the items or the shipment's value. Now, if you're a business like us, it's not a problem because that VAT is actually tax deductible from your VAT return, all right? But for an individual person, if you're shopping online for something in Japan, like if for some weird reason you wouldn't be buying your burger from KendoStar, you'd be buying it from some other company in Japan. Don't know why you'd do that, but let's just talk hypotheticals. Even if they're going to put a zero trade, zero tariff, zero import duty on Kendo equipment, you're only going to save that sort of 2% on those import costs. So you're still going to be slapped with plus 20 to 25% on delivery for the VAT in your country, all right? You can't get out of that. That's just how it works, all right? Unless you're buying it through a VAT registered business, in which case you can claim that back through your VAT return. All right. So sorry to get technical there about that. I know it's a bit confusing, a bit rambly, but what I'm saying is if you're in the EU, it's still currently cheaper. Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be less upfront costs, let's say, all right, because it depends on the items you buy and stuff like that. But you're not going to have the same amount of upfront costs if you buy from a company within the EU, like KendoStar. So yeah, and even if the Japan trade deal thing does affect Kendo Burger, which it's currently not doing, but even if it did, then you're still going to have to pay the VAT. All right, so you're still going to get slapped with a bill when it gets delivered to your door. All right, so that's that. So I know a lot of you are going to ask me now about what's going to happen when the UK exits the European Union and how that's going to affect KendoStar and its business with the rest of the EU. I can't say for certain right now. We do have stuff planned for every eventuality, and it definitely isn't going to affect our business. I'm totally not worried about it. You shouldn't be worried about it either. It isn't something that's going to affect the way that you trade with KendoStar, whether you, when you buy something from us, we're going to make sure that it still results in an excellent experience for you. All right, we've got lots of plans, but we don't know exactly which one we're going to go with yet because the UK government and the EU haven't finished negotiating exactly what's going to happen after that exit is complete. All right, so don't worry about it. We are dealing with it. Next one. As you were talking about female Kendo, could you possibly talk about the fitting of female Borger? Right, okay, yeah, I'm quite happy to talk about this. Basically, the Borger is not designed specifically in a kind of binary male or female designations. You know, like some stuff is. Shinai could be, because the regulations are set like that, all right? You've got men's regulations, you've got women's regulations. For Borger, there's nothing like that. And the shape of the Borger overall, in general, is the same, all right? However, there are some things that are important to consider for women for the Kendo Borger. Now, let me just grab something. Oh, I'm doing that a lot in this video. Okay, so here's a door, right? This door belongs to my wife. Okay, and this one is mine. All right. So my wife is a Japanese lady. She's quite a bit smaller than I am, by quite a long way actually. She's a sort of average build Japanese female. It's about 160 centimeters tall. And this is the door she uses. Now, we at KendoStar, we do have sizes of all our Borg sets, right? Even the ones that we keep in stock. We have them in an array of sizes, and we have do, tare, and kote that are generally more suitable for women, all right? Now, that isn't to say that they're for women, because there are some men that are of a certain build that it also is appropriate for, all right? So the door, for example, if we compare these two, I'm not sure if we're going to see it on the video so well, but my door here is in front, and as you can see, the mune is actually bigger all the way around. I'm not sure if you can see that on the video, but it's about, it's just over a centimeter bigger all the way around. All right, so it's covering more of this area. The door die though is the same. Okay, it's the same size of the door die. All right, because women actually generally have slightly wider hips. Now the thing is though, the door die, especially with these synthetic ones, is completely adjustable. I did a video about that a couple of it was like a few weeks ago now, but you could find it easily. But these door die are actually size adjustable. Yeah, you can change these to fit however you want. We have made custom mune as well for women that have got specific measurements, without going into too much detail, that are a little bit higher at the sides. That's certainly something else that we can do as a custom order, all right? But it isn't something that's suitable for everybody, so we don't keep it as standard, yeah? But where it's higher at the sides here, giving that little bit of extra protection under the ribs, but if you go too high, it starts to it starts to interfere with the position of the arms for the kamae, okay? So you can't go too much with it. Now, in terms of the actual design, obviously the tare as well, we have tare that are slightly more suitable for women, but it depends as well on the person's individual measurements, let's say, all right? Because it's not, I mean, it's in the best way, but in Japan, men and women are shaped differently to men and women over here, all right? And that's something that at KendoStar we're very, very conscious of. So if we go by Japanese women's sizes and say, if we base our Borger range on what's popular with Japanese women in Japan, just like if we did that popular with Japanese men in Japan, it wouldn't be super suitable for the international community, and that's not what we're about here at KendoStar. All right, so we do make sure that we have sizes that are suitable for everybody, men, women, and juniors as well. Okay, but otherwise, that's pretty much it when it comes to differences really between I really even hesitate to use the word Borger for men, Borger for women. I don't really think it works like that. Instead, the way we work here at KendoStar is we have a full array of sizes, and we pick the size of each part, or we make the size of each part depending on the person's individual measurements. Next one. Is there a regulation for feet accessories? I tried different tabby for my left foot and I always feel like they're too slippery. My girlfriend suggested trying Kung Fu, Olympic gymnastics and even ballet footwear, hence the question. Also, are there any tips in order to make the leather sole of the tabby less slippery? All right, well, first off, I don't recommend like wearing gymnastics or ballet shoes or something like that. There's two things that could be wrong here. One, it could be an issue with your footwork or the floor that you're working on, because this sort of thing, it isn't like people don't need to wear ballet shoes or gymnastic shoes in Kendo, right? You can see that if you look around, right? However, it isn't that uncommon that when people wear tabby, that the leather sole feels a little bit slippery. What you can do is you can just dampen it. All right, don't soak it through, but if you just dampen it, you'll find that it gets a little bit more grip. In terms of regulation, generally you're not allowed to wear them. You're not allowed to wear like feet protectors and stuff like that unless you get permission from the head judge or the head referee on the day of a tournament. You have to take it, you have to show them, you have to give them a reason why you're wearing it. They hardly ever say no, but you know that's how it goes. Okay, last one. How do I remove sweat stains from the ball grit? I've tried spraying them with water, sometimes with a little vinegar mixed in, and dabbing with a cloth. It doesn't do a great job. When they dry, after the cleaning, the sweat stains come right back, but the dye comes off. I'm going to have to disappear again. Okay, back again. Right. Okay, so I've got myself a taddy here, and it's got some really lovely, gross sweat stains on it. I think you can see that. Not sure if the camera's picking it up, but anyway, there's some sweat stains on there, and I'm going to clean them off. Now, people have mentioned stuff on the comments already about rubbing alcohol and stuff, and you mentioned vinegar. I don't do anything like that. I don't use anything like that. I don't think you need to. Now, the best thing to do is try and prevent this by making sure you dry the ball grit out properly, and if possible, when you get home after practice, take the ball grit out of the bag and give it just a wipe down with... like if you sweat on it, the areas where it's sweat, if it's damp with sweat, if you just get a damp cloth, now this is an old tenugui of mine that I don't use anymore, and I've just dampened it with some water. Now it's not dripping wet, it's just damp, all right? And then you just wipe it, all right? Pretty much do what I'm about to do, where the sweat, where it's damp with sweat. And you won't probably experience it that much. However, if you forget to do that like I've done with this one, what you can do instead is you get your damp cloth. There's nothing on this, it's just water, all right? And what I'm doing is I'm now going to I'm just pressing against it, all right? And I'm gently rubbing where it's stained. Now, what I am also doing, I'm being very careful, the stitches run in this direction. All right, they run in this direction. All right, so I'm not going to rub this way. All right, I'm going to rub in the same direction, as the stitches. All right, and as soon as it gets wet, it's going to disappear. But that doesn't mean it's gone. All right. So what you want to do instead is just where you've just done it, you just want to give it an extra sort of rub and sort of press down on it as well. All right, sort of sponge down on it just like that, and that's going to help. All right, and then you move along, do the whole thing. Right, I'm not scrubbing like this, yeah, because that's going to damage the fabric and the dye, yeah. But this will just help. And what you want to do is, if you do it like this, yeah, and then after it's dried, if the sweat stains come back, do it again. All right, and just do it a couple of times if you need to, and I think you'll definitely find that they clear away. Yeah, just be gentle. Yeah, I'm pressing down on it, but I'm not scrubbing at it, yeah? I'm just pressing down, try and clean them off, all right? And it's already starting to look a lot cleaner, but we won't know properly until it's dried, of course, but I'm sure it's going to have gone away, all right? Because I've done this a few times before, all right? And that's it, and then just leave it to dry, and this should be all gone. And that's it, done. Okay, that's the end of today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's quite a long one today because I had loads of questions this week. Thank you very much. Let me know what you'd like me to rant about next time down in the comments, or you can post in the Kendo Show Early Access group. There's a link in the description or it's written on the screen somewhere. It's a great group to be in because obviously it's not just me in there that answers the questions on here. It's a whole community of Kendoka from all over the world. So you get their sort of input as well. Don't forget to do your shopping at KendoStar, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.